Hello, everyone. President Trump said on day one he's going to start taking action, and he was not kidding around. Trump has fired the first round, and right at a four-star Admiral, Linda Fagan, who was a Commodore of the Coast Guard. She's been relieved. Now, I just want to discuss that a little bit, but this has sent shockwaves throughout the Department of Defense, and the reason being is you typically don't relieve four-star flag officers or generals. It's not an easy thing, but Trump did it essentially on day one. And before we discuss that, I just got some information that at Walmart, I mean, there's massive crowds forming, and they're evidently running out of Depends because all the political appointees from the previous administration and many senior military leaders evidently are making a dash for Walmart to get their share of Depends diapers. So this is a serious development. I just want to cut away real quick. I'm not a financial advisor, but if you have the means and the will, I would definitely invest in Depends diapers. Anyway, let's get back to reality. The reality is this. Benjamin Huffman, who's the acting secretary for Homeland Defense, relieved the Coast Guard commandant because the Coast Guard comes underneath Homeland Defense. And he gave five reasons of why he made the decision to relieve her. The first decision was border security. And I want to kind of talk about that because he brought up the fact that drugs are coming across, via the sea, and the Coast Guard is responsible to securing our sea borders of the country. And fentanyl and whatnot is coming over in hordes, evidently. So that was one reason. Second reason that he gave was recruiting shortfalls, and which all services are experiencing right now. Uh, and the Coast Guard is having some serious problems because of due to recruiting shortfalls and aging fleet. They can't meet their commitments, so that's an issue. And although that Admiral Fagan had asked for an increase in the budget from $14 billion a year to $20 billion, she was still held accountable for that. The third one was delays and cost overruns in acquiring new icebreakers to keep the Arctic routes open, and also helicopters. Evidently, there's some significant problems in that. They didn't really provide much detail about it, but she was held accountable for that as well. The fourth one is excessive focus on DEI. Evidently, Admiral Fagan on several occasions made the comments that DEI is an operational imperative, and and that got her in hot water because of the change in administration. And the last one is mishandling Operation Fouled Anchor, which was really the sexual assaults against several Coast Guard cadets at the Coast Guard Academy between 2014 and 2019. And Admiral Fagan didn't provide the requisite information that was in the investigation to the Senate and Congress. So she was held accountable for that. But the point that I want to really discuss is the first one, the border security. The Coast Guard is deployed all over the world. Now, if we have an issue where we don't have enough resources on the border, why didn't she raise her hand and say, hey, I want to pull back some of these Coast Guard resources from other countries and then focus on the security of the United States? I mean, that's what she should have done because they've got, Coast Guard supporting Fifth Fleet in the Middle East. They've got it supporting in Europe and the Far East. And, let the other countries guard their own sea borders, but we need to make sure that our borders, first and foremost, are secure. And I say that because I've worked with the Coast Guard, when I was a captain, company commander, and we participated in Operation Sea Signal. And I'll tell you what, I was very impressed by the professionalism of the Coast Guardsmen and women. So we spent a lot of time together. We used to provide Marines to go on their cutters with them to intercept migrants coming across to Florida. So we worked hand in glove with each other, and I've got nothing but the utmost respect for the Coast Guard. So nonetheless, so I think that's a mistake she made. She got too wrapped up in this forward deployed forces because it's a sexy mission to be deployed in harm's way, and she forgot about the Homeland Defense. So that's one thing. The recruiting shortfalls, every service is experiencing that, to include the Marine Corps, which last year made the mission I think by four recruits. So that's a problem that we have, and hopefully with the changes coming up in the military, we can encourage more young people to join. The third one was delays and cost overruns and icebreakers. That's a huge problem, and as the commandant, she's ultimately responsible for that, and she got sucked into this one. The excessive focus on DEI. This is an important one because the issue is this. What I've seen is when officers come in the military and they're of junior rank. Let's just say from I consider junior rank lieutenant and captain, and they're pretty much focused on the mission. They're hardcore. They're focused on training, and they've got the ethos that they get from their officer candidate school or in the Marine Corps, the basic school. And when they come to the operating forces, they're ready to go, focused on the right things. But when they become a field grade, a mid-level officer, field grade, a major, lieutenant colonel, they start, looking at retirement. Hey, I can do 20 years and I'm going to get retirement, so I better start, zipping my mouth and watch what I say and work the party line. And there's nothing wrong with that. You want team players, but you also want people that are going to speak truth to power. So, and then when you get to become a senior officer, colonel or above, or a general officer, it changes you. You just become culturally, you're changed, and you're expected to toe the party line. And that's when people really need to, think about what the hell they're doing, and are they compromising themselves and their values. I'm not saying every colonel or general is like that, but many of them are, because you get all these aspirations all of a sudden that, hey, I'm a colonel, I want to become a brigadier general, so I'm really going to, grease my hair really good, look sharp every day, be in shape so my picture looks good, and I'm not going to make any waves. So hopefully they'll select me to be a general officer and be part of this very closed group of senior officers. Now, when you become a brigadier general, that's a big deal. And, all of a sudden in your mind, hey, I want 2 stars now. That's the next thing, and command a division or what have you. And then lieutenant general is really where it's at, because lieutenant general's got some power, right? Because lieutenant general is appointed in that position by Senate, consent of Senate. So that's a big deal. And you start becoming very political. You start paying attention. You're reading the Early Bird every morning. You're working the keyboard, because you're networking with emails and whatnot. And you forget about doing your job, which is leadership by walking around, right? Making sure the barracks are squared away, making sure the troops are being trained, making sure they're being fed well. And these are some of the endemic problems we're having in the military right now, because the troops are complaining about shitty meals and crappy barracks with mold and shit growing all over it. I've done a previous podcast on that. Nonetheless, and once you become a 4-star, man, you've arrived. That's it. That's the pinnacle of your career. You could be the commandant of the Marine Corps. You could be commandant of the Coast Guard, a service chief. It's a big deal. Or you could be a combatant commander. That's another big deal. And you're just politically savvy, because you're at the top and you expect people to worship you. There's an expectation there. Hey, I'm a 4-star general, and I expect you to stand up when I come in the room. I expect you to salute me, and I expect you to say, aye, aye, sir, and I expect you to agree with me. Well, that's just hubris, right? And that's how we get in trouble. Nonetheless, so, she kind of, everything that I've heard from my contacts in the Coast Guard, she's a pretty good officer, but she got wrapped up in this DEI stuff and didn't push back on it. Now, let me tell you something. The reason we get these bars and stars on our collar is because you have to be able to put them down on the table and say, I'm not going to do it. I'll resign my commission and move on. And unfortunately, not enough officers do that, because we get wrapped up on this career track, to make major, then to make retirement, to make brigadier general, and so forth, as I talked about. So that's very important. Now, so as I said, she was a good officer. She got commissioned in 1985 after graduating from the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. did the normal tour, on the cutters and stuff, and commanded at all levels. And then she was a captain of the New York City port, which is a huge responsibility because that's a pretty damn big port. And then was a deputy J3 at U.S. Northern Command, and then became the deputy commandant of the Coast Guard for operations, and then became the vice commandant of the Coast Guard in 2021. And then in 2022, she became the commandant. So she had a great track record, right? And but unfortunately, she got wrapped up in all this high level politics and forgot what her mission was. Her mission was to secure the borders of the United States. And if you got resources overseas, hell, bring them back. That's what I would do. But people don't think about these things. The most important thing we got is our homeland. That's what we defend. But we've got this mindset now that, hey, if we're forward deployed, it looks great, in the Joint Staff briefs and the SecDef briefs that, hey, we got Coast Guard cutters deployed all over the world, while your ass is hanging out the back. So that makes no sense, right? Those are tough decisions you got to make. And then, I can understand the delays and cost overruns. I mean, every service is having that. We talked about that before, especially the Air Force with all the high-ticket items, the B-2s, the B-21s, the F-35s, having the Marine Corps even had those problems with our AAAV program that we're going to have, and that got sidetracked with the Osprey program. We had cost overruns and whatnot. So that's fairly common to have. But you still got to be able to manage it, and you got to keep briefing the Armed Services Committees to make sure they stay abreast of what the hell's going on. But if you're going to hold information from them, they're going to get pissed off at you. And that's exactly what you did in Operation Filed Anchor. Never hold information back to safeguard your institution. If you got a problem, I was always taught, you got a problem, you raise your hand. I got a problem. And then people will help you. But if you try to hide that problem, hoping that it'll just go away, it's not going to go away. Because somebody's going to dime you out, or a whistleblower is going to say, hey, this is what's going on. And that's exactly what happened to her. And as soon as Congress lost, trust and confidence in her, she was a wounded animal. And once you become a wounded animal, you become a prey. And the predators are going to come after you. And that's exactly what happened. The most important part here is this is the first one. I foresee many more general officers and senior political appointees being fired by Trump. What's one thing about Trump? He's unpredictable. And a lot of times when he says stuff, he means it. So this is a warning order to all the senior military leaders and political appointees. Stand by. The president means exactly what he says. And if I were you, I'd make the mad dash to Walmart and get your Depends, because you're going to need them. That's all I got. Stay rugged. Con out.